the report of the Royal Commission of Inquiry into child abuse in state and faith-based care will be tabled at Parliament, and there will in fact be a hikoi to Parliament as it is presented. We'll be talking more about this later in the program. Some questions to be asked about how we respond as a society, and perhaps in particular today, how we respond as a faith community to this report, and I suppose find a way forward which is safer for the children and young people who are involved in faith-based care and activities. Joining me on the program now, Reverend Dr. Stuart Lange. He's National Director of the New Zealand Christian Network. Stuart, kia ora, good morning. Thanks for your time today.
Kia ora, morning.
It is, this report a long time coming, and of course an extensive document with it's quite the weighty tome and many recommendations. And there'll be a lot of people who are perhaps listening to this at the moment who have a stake in this. Tragically, many people in New Zealand for whom this is something which has either directly affected them or a member of their family.
Well, yeah, I mean, we just have to foremost, I think of the victims, the survivors, because, you know, when you read the interim report, of course, nobody's read the full report yet, except those who wrote it. It's just absolutely harrowing, the accounts of abuse, and it's just lifelong. It's ruined their lives, basically.
Yeah.
So that's the key feeling I have about that in terms of the impact of it. It's very personal and very deep for a lot of people.
It is, I suppose, trying to find any silver lining in this horrific scenario. It is good that this Royal Commission has happened. It is good that these dark and evil deeds have been brought into the light, that we can have a conversation about, gosh, what on earth went wrong that this evil could happen, and what can we do as a society and as a faith community to make things better, to make things right for those that were harmed, and to ensure that this type of thing to reduce the chances of this type of thing ever happening?
Well, it's at different times. I mean, 1950 to 1999, different times, different expectations, got into some bad habits, and a lot of it behind closed doors, but it's just totally inexcusable what happened.
With the, I suppose, the faith aspect of it, quite rightly, for those who were involved, for those who were survivors or victims of this abuse, being angry at the church, being angry at how the church failed them, being angry at how those that they should have been able to trust abused them as children. Being honest about this, but recognizing that for these people, and for a lot of people that will be listening to this report today, very angry at church, even angry at God that this was allowed to happen.
Well, I mean, all forms of, you know, abuse, the sort of serious abuse that the commission's reported. I mean, it's all totally wrong.
Yeah.
In any context, Christian or otherwise, or state run. But it's doubly tragic and harmful that some of it happened in church-run children's homes and church-run schools and so on.
Yeah.
And I think what hurts is not just the fact that it happened, but it's just so totally contrary to Christian values of, you know, respect and care and kindness, and caring for people and not doing them harm. I mean, it's absolutely anathema in terms of Christian values. It's a blatant contradiction of that which we stand for. It's not the church as a whole who did it, but the church authorities in some cases had these institutions, and they allowed people in them, you know, maybe not vetted enough, look the other way, and it happened, and it's just a terrible thing.
How the church responds to it this day, because as I say, there'll be people very angry at the church, and for good reason in many regards. But I suppose how the church community responds both as a body and as individual congregations, because it'd be very easy to say, oh, it wasn't us, it was them. Or those people, that part of the body, they've got problems, but we've got a clean house. over here. It'd be very easy to rush to excuses or explanations, but today especially, Stuart, the wrong thing to be doing, the wrong thing to be saying.
Well, there's not a church there's not there's not a Christian denomination or movement that hasn't had, given human frailty,
Yeah.
some breaches in this regard. Some denominations historically were very involved in care. Some of the denominations, I mean, the Catholics, the Anglicans, the Salvation Army.
Yeah.
So they're more exposed to the risk of that. But none of us can say it could never have happened in our own corners. But it happened under a Christian name, and so we all, in a sense, feel the scandal and the indignation of what happened, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There has been a talk already. Prime Minister Christopher Luxon said that there will be given a national apology, a state apology in response to the recommendation. Do you think there should be a faith-based apology as well? Is that part of what should happen next, Stuart?
Well, I think it's something that will be considered. I mean, it could be individual denominations.
Yeah.
Apologize for what happened on their watch.
Yeah.
There can be general sense of the word lament has been used, of great regret or sadness that it happened.
Yeah.
I mean, only a tiny proportion of Christians were involved in doing the abuse,
Yeah.
and they never had permission from the church authorities. But we all feel the shame and just sorrow of what happened.
Yeah.
So I think it's a very sensitive area. It also it impinges on for some of these organisations that were implicated. They'd never have chosen to be, but they were.
Yeah.
There's the question of reparations. I mean, reparations, it's a matter of justice, and we've got to absolutely respect the fact that some people whose lives have been, severely wounded, will not only want apologies, but they will also want financial reparation.
Yeah.
And it becomes complicated because, just the relationship between apology and provision for reparations. And so it's a bit of a minefield, but I think there will be serious, prayerful thought about all that. I'm sure that a lot of churches have thought about that already and are thinking.
And that will be costly to the government and the faith community as well.
Oh, the reparations.
With reparations,
yeah,
but,
sure.
but there should be a cost when harm is done, when the shalom of a community is broken in such a dramatic and horrific way that I suppose there should be a cost and not just an apology in that regard. Stuart, you mentioned at the beginning of our conversation that this did happen a long time ago, to an extent that this was a different society, and some of the abuse which is in the report talks about physical abuse such as smacking and caning that happened, which honestly back in the 1950s was pretty normal. It's only, I suppose, when we look at things through a modern lens that we just see it as wrong and horrific. However, we can't just use that as an excuse. We can't just say, oh gosh, this is something which just happened back in the day, because tragically, this is still happening in our churches. It's still happening in our...
Abuse happens every day, right across society, sadly, and it still sometimes happens in churches. Never intended, except by the perpetrators. It's not the church's fault, but all we can do is, and what we must do is never condone it, never look the other way. Yeah. We must absolutely be rigorous, and the very least we can do at this stage is to, given the terrible consequences of when these things happen, is our systems of safeguarding children and vulnerable people must be way more rigorous these days than they ever were in the past. So it's an ongoing risk, and we have an ongoing and even greater responsibility to protect people against the unthinkable happening on our patch. And so it's really important that churches, both denominations, independent churches, small churches, big churches, have utterly rigorous systems in place that not only are on paper but actually work. And it will seem to some people over the top, but I think we cannot but do that.
And not just like a policy tick boxing exercise to go, we've done our
token
procedures. Yeah, exactly.
No. It must be absolutely serious. Yeah, it may never happen, but the consequences for people are so serious that we absolutely have to have good systems that are up to date and implemented and are serious in intent.
Things may be better than they were back in the 50s, but still, I suppose, a long way to go. And I know for some people, having a more robust system, people feel uncomfortable as if they're being accused. But actually, if this is what it takes to protect vulnerable children, then what more can we do should be a question that we ask rather than, how much is enough? We need to go beyond on the minimums in this regard and do all we can to protect vulnerable children in our care. Stuart, this is an historic day, a somber day, but a day where we can perhaps own what happened and work together as faith communities to build safer places for our children. Thank you for the work that you do at the New Zealand Christian Network. Thanks for taking the time to chat with us today.
Okay, thank you. God bless.
Hey, thanks very much for joining us in the Rhema studio. Thanks very much for watching the interview. It's kind of nice to have an audience, actually. And if you did like what you watched, then do give us a like, do give us the thumbs up. And if you'd like to see more interviews like that one, or perhaps even better, subscribe and those interviews will come straight to you. Don't forget to turn on your notifications, and we'll see you in the next one. Cheers.